I think I think it's working this time, mate. My apologies, buddy. That's my bad. I don't know what happened there. Had a bit of a technical issue. We'll start again, mate. You know what? That's okay. Life's not perfect. Well, life is perfect, but it's not made up of all roses, I guess, if you like, mate. Firstly, welcome, Jason Reynolds. I'd just like to personally acknowledge you, buddy, and thank you for giving up your time tonight.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. I really, appreciate the invitation.
I wish I'd called on you early, to be honest. We spend a fair bit of time together, but you've seen what I've been going through with the Great Australian Party, and I kind of wish I'd called you in a little bit earlier now, but it didn't happen, and perhaps all things are there to support us, and maybe there was a good reason why it didn't. But I really wanted to reach out to you because from where I stand at the personal level, what we're talking about tonight for me has been incredibly difficult since I started up my Senate page back in May. I probably wasn't prepared for this, I must say, and I don't know how you ever prepare to do what you do when you step up to do what I'm doing anyway. But since May, and I did a quick calculation, there's been over 30,000 messages that I've had from social media, email, text, whatever it might be. Now, a lot of those, in fairness, are just people who are sharing information or seeking some sort of guidance. So absolutely no drama. But I guess what's been so disturbing for me, Jace, is the amount of people that have reached out in utter despair. I've had people that have, and it's really hard to say, that have contemplated ending their life. And I've had long phone calls. I've had 3-hour phone calls with people. I'm not a counsellor by any stretch, but I just held space with them. And I guess unless you actually speak to these people on the phone, as I was, it's truly hard to imagine what life must be like for them in that moment. When you read the stuff, when I read other people's posts and they're talking about suicide, I don't think you can ever get a real appreciation for it until you feel and you hear that emotion in their voice. And I know that everything that's happening at the moment, certainly it's taking its toll on people, whether, depending where you sit on the fence, but generally speaking, it's been pretty stressful for a lot of people. And especially in my opinion, when a lot of this could have been avoided. But then even that comment there gets me thinking, was COVID just a stimulus that drew this out? Has it always been there, this fear and anxiety that we have in human life basically today? Or was this just a phenomenon, So I think it's something that inherently has been there. And I guess throughout my life, and I'm going to hand over to you shortly, but throughout my life, I've been exposed to many forms of training, counselling, health expertise, and they've all had their place. There's no doubt about that. But I've not had anything that's helped me deal with what I consider a significant crisis, in not just Australia, but around the world. So even when these politicians take their foot off the pedal, people are still on edge because they just don't know when these politicians are going to put their foot back down again. And we've seen that in Melbourne, the shutdown, the opening, the shutdown, the opening. It's just once, and people are just absolutely. A lot of people are at the end of their tether. And I've been tempted, like I said, to ask you many times to jump on here. Yet I understand you run a commercial business, mate, and that comes at a high cost. You do amazing work. But it's now got to a point where I need to put all my effort into driving forward the Great Australian Party. Yet I'm torn and conflicted because I just don't want to leave people. I have a genuine compassion for people, and I just don't want to leave them behind. But I've got to do something different, or I can't move forward. All I'm going to do all day is just take phone calls and respond to people, and that's not going to serve me, and it's not going to serve the people I don't even get to. So I guess from where I sit, there's many people that I respond to and a lot that I don't. And as I said earlier, I had a call yesterday with a lady for 3 hours, and just a whole space for it. It just takes a lot of your own energy up. But fortunately, I managed to talk her down from the edge. So I need a better way to serve everyone because I can't do it on my own. And as I said, I don't want to turn my back on people and leave them behind. So kind of end to you, I've known you for a while, and without question, the work I've done with you has been a life changer for me. And for full transparency, For full transparency for everyone watching this, I have not taken 1 cent from any person or anything to do what I'm doing, running for the Senate. And that includes Jason tonight. He is a friend, but he's also running his own business. It also includes the Great Australian Party. And of course, we get membership and we get donations, and we're incredibly grateful for that. But again, I've not asked Rod for 1 cent because there'll come a time where we're going to launch the campaign, and I'll need it at that particular time. But up until then, there's not 1 cent I've taken from one soul. And I just want to be transparent about that. And also, I've got obviously no vested interest in your business at all. But again, just making that clear. So tonight comes from a place of care and love and support. And to be honest, support for me as much as the people that I believe would benefit from what you have to offer. Because if we can direct people from someone like me to you or to what you offer, then that frees up my time to focus on all the things that I want to create with Rod and the Greatest Australian Party. So we can support all Australians, because ultimately that's what I'm stepping up and doing. I'll hand over shortly, but I just wanted to call out a couple of key learnings. And there's been many that I've had with you during my time. But I guess the one thing that stands out the most, and that is, why don't we take action before something becomes a crisis or a problem? And it sounds simple, and I guess it is, but it's not easy. And as someone that's coached many people, both through my health and wellness coaching and also as a national sales director, I know it's not easy because I've been with these people. And if I may, I just want to give you an example of where this happened in my life. When I was 17, I weighed, and don't laugh at me, I weighed in at nearly 107 kilos. I think it's 117, but I'll go with 107. My brother Dave used to take shots at me because the steering wheel of my Tirana used to rub on my belly, and he would laugh because he's always been a pretty, thin but very fit sort of guy. I remember I was only 17, but young love, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and she left me quite possibly for a few reasons, but I suspect it was because I cared little about my weight, my size, and my health. And she was quite the opposite. She was all into, your health and your wellness, and I did put on a lot of weight during the time we were together. And I guess you could say she didn't sign up for what I'd become. But what happened next, and I'd say it's not the recommended way to lose weight, is I nearly died from a rather nasty strain of salmonella. I dropped about 40 odd kilos in a few short months, basically. And so I went down to 74 kilos. And ironically, that's the weight I am today, 35 years later. I haven't really budged much. But during that time, I was unable to eat. I was in hospital. My vital organs were shutting down. Clearly, I survived, but that's not my point. I was pretty heartbroken at losing my girlfriend. And after a few months of recovery, I started getting fit. I wouldn't say I ate particularly well at the time, but I certainly moved a lot and drank less. And as a part-time wellness coach for many years, I see this thing I'm about to say next as a consistent theme where couples break up. And more often, it's the one that didn't do the breaking up that heads straight to the gym and embarks on a fitness and wellness campaign. Now, I'm sure we all know or have experienced people who are in relationships similar to this, where someone breaks up, and said person goes to the gym because they want to start again, they want to get fit. But I guess, why do we need to wait for a crisis, before we take action? And so it's consistent with work, with your social environments, finance, food, just to name a few. It's like we've got two lives and we generally wait for the second one to begin before we realize we've only got one. So I kind of wanted to lead in with that story because it's pretty important for me. And I just wanted to sort of hand over you and give you the floor, and, maybe you can offer some insights into this and something that you've considered over the last week since we spoke.
Thanks, Jace. It's just listening to you makes me aware of why I admire you so much. It's I hope I can offer something going forward, and we have put a bit of thought into this, because it's something that I've been confronted with for a lot of years, and it's not just people today. This has been going on for a long time, and I used to look. I was in a town in New Zealand a couple of years ago, and I can't recall exactly, but I know they were nearly the highest suicide rate for youth. And I think they'd had 8 teenagers take their life, 13 to 15-year-olds it was actually between, in about 3 or 4 months, in a community of about 2,000 people. That's pretty significant. And I'd found myself, in front of that, and I just used to look at what someone has to get to such a point to actually go through and want to do that. And for some of us, look, to be completely honest, I had some moments over the last couple of weeks where you actually consider that. Well, I've considered that. And I don't mean actually taking the action, but what I've learned to do over the years, what becomes painful and what becomes a challenge in our life are the things that we hold on to. Something like, for example, what we've happened to touch on now, suicide. The problem with suicide and why suicide gets acted upon is because those thoughts are held inside. Those individuals believe that they have no one to speak to, no one who understands them. One of the most healthy things that we can do is release those thoughts. because those thoughts released are not acted upon. And when if you can just consider the amount of love that we require within our own self to expose what we are. For some of us, we only do it with the people that we're most intimate with, but for some of us, those people that we spend our life with, we have the most secrets from. And I've learned over the years that it's ironically so simple. But what we're going through with COVID has been such an exposing of how this agenda to confuse people, to take away their liberties bit by bit, to strip away their ability to move and to express themselves, freedom of movement, freedom of expression. The two things that are there that cause us as individuals to function in a way that is fulfilling, that is true. As soon as you restrict the movement of something, it becomes stagnant, it becomes toxic, it becomes what we would say at times frustrated. And when someone's frustrated, it doesn't matter what joy or love is brought, it doesn't matter what attention you give it when you're frustrated, you've just got to get it out. And these particular agendas, they are there, but they are organized, they're in place, but at the same time, what we've got to understand is how has that occurred? And these are some of the difficult things I've had to go through with people that are, in a dire space. Because when we only see ourselves being oppressed, when we only see ourselves blaming the environment around us, nothing can change. It's not until we take responsibility for our own experience and situation, not that we made this happen to ourselves, that we went out there and started censoring or started creating, chemicals or agendas or narratives or propaganda. But the thing is, the fact that we're experiencing it the way that we are is our own individual experience. If we don't take responsibility for that, we will never change it. We will find our life continually focused upon other people needing to change, other people needing to do right by us. And I'm sure, as you're all aware, as you expect or require someone else to do something for you, very rarely does that ever make a difference. Very rarely do we actually find within our own self, our own capacity to navigate our way forward. We're consistently waiting for others. And I don't know about you, but for me, waiting is one of the most frustrating things as well. Sitting there without any indication of my ability, again, to move, to express myself. I'm in the hands of someone else. But the point here is, could an empowered, educated, organized group of people ever be coerced? Could an empowered, educated, organized, and accountable individuals, could they ever be separated? What I'm suggesting is that our humanity might be in a partly, or society, let's not say humanity, society may be in a hole. But it's the fact that we've discovered that hole, that we can now see that hole, that we have the opportunity to now get out of it. And the issue is, for some of us, is to recognize the responsibility that we are being controlled because we're not making our own decisions. We are being controlled because we don't know what direction we want to take. We are being controlled because we haven't taken the liberty, the courage to actually say what we want to create. And this is a common thing that happens through many people in part of this whole agenda as well. And look, when I talk about the agenda, I'm not opposing it, I'm not fearful of it. It was something I was aware of 20 or so years ago, and I pay no attention to it whatsoever now. My focus is upon creating a life that engages me. And to me, it's a background noise, a narrative that doesn't really exist. But I do understand that there's many people that are going through stages in their life where they're desperately and dramatically affected and in pain, and considering what we're talking before, the end of their own life. But what this comes down to, and what's really important, as individuals, there's so many things in our life that we have started, but rarely complete. And if everyone was to look into their own life and look how many things that they started but they didn't complete, will give you a good indication of why it is that you're stressed. when we don't complete things, and I'm sure any of you will be aware of this, when you complete something, the fulfillment and the satisfaction it comes. Whether it's a meal, there's something as simple as that in its own minor way. But whether it's a garden, putting in a new retaining wall outside, or building a veggie garden, whether it's actually going for a run and getting to that last part of it, whatever it may be, whatever routine that it is that you're in, when you complete something, there's a level of fulfillment that no one else can deny.
I think just to touch on that, you hear about the New Year's resolutions all the time, and I've never been one for them, especially not in my later life. But I used to run 100Kers, and you train up through the Dandenongs and all that, and you'd knock out 60K just in training on a Saturday, and then the event would come. And when you finish, when you do 100 kilometers and you finish, it is just, that resonates with me personally strong. It doesn't have to be a 100K run, of course. It can be anything.
It can be a walk to the shops.
Well, it could be as simple as that, mate. Yeah. Some people can't move 100 meters. So,
this is part of where one of the interesting things that, is ironic for many with a lot of the work that we go through is that we don't teach people to heal themselves. We don't try to heal them. We don't try to fix anything because there's nothing to fix. And that's a challenging thing for people to consider, especially when they might be in pain or challenged in any particular way. But the thing is that when you become proficient, when you become understanding of the how-to in your life, how you move forward, because fear, uncertainty, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, it's all at the base of it's all one thing. But we've all got different conditions, diagnosis. Some of us think it's hereditary. For many of us, until we actually understand ourselves, we're going to take what anyone else will tell us. But look, to understand all of those things, they exist in our life, because as an individual, we're challenged in our own capacity to be able to move forward. Now, fear, stress, anxiety, everyone experiences it in some way. The difference is that some people only experience it for a millisecond. They feel it, it comes up within them, but their choice is already to move forward. For others, it's a very different experience, that when fear comes up, they hold on to it because it's so familiar. And they have this experience that fear is there with them the whole time, and then they watch something else and it elevates it more and it confirms it. And again, they hold on to it. It's not about being free from fear. I mean, that's an irony, that's something that's not going to happen. It's understanding how to move through fear, move beyond fear, actually be embracing of fear. Because as soon as you embrace the very thing you fear, in a very short space of time, that thing dissolves. Yeah. It's gone. Yeah. When you love and bring love towards your enemy or your opponent, that they don't know where to go. But this is not some new age philosophy or ideal about bringing love to the moment. This is about, as an individual, understanding the very dynamics and fundamentals that make us work, rather than continually doing things that don't work, that continually find us doing things that challenge us. But this is about gaining a level of understanding. And let me just clarify this word understanding. One of the biggest problems that exists in this world is knowledge, and people believe that they need it. Knowledge is a holding of information, and often knowledge is other people's information. And it might challenge some people to consider this. But knowledge predicates conversations. It's about being right and wrong. There's a very big difference with understanding. And I'd suggest to each of you is to consider the people that you're most fulfilled by, the people that you most like spending time with. And I'd suggest to you that those people are the ones that you believe understand you. Now, understanding itself, when we are as an individual understood by someone else, we find worth, we find value, we find genuine connection. Mm-hmm. Now, for some of us, we might go through life where we find ourselves as a bit of a fish out of water, where we don't have people that resonate with us or that we even understand. But one of the great things that's happened in recent times is suddenly people have been brought together with from a lot of different walks of life that are suddenly now speaking all the same thing, that they feel now so much more fulfilled because of what they've been able to create. So one of the things that's really important to understand at a very basic level is just look around your life and the people who understand you and the fulfillment that brings you. Now, that's a great thing. And I would suggest it's also even a greater thing in our own life to look at our own richness in our life will also be determined by how many of those people could actually speak to you without the fear of losing a relationship with you. And what I mean by that is having people in your life that can tell you the truth ahead of maintaining a relationship. People that you want in your life to be able to keep you complete, grounded, real, and raw. Because it's our ability to express ourselves freely that again will give you the most freedom. Not fighting against something. Yes, it might feel good for a while, and it might feel good to launch off with a whole tirade of a speech that, you know, gets the people going. But in the longer term, it's not going to change anything. It can stimulate things. But ultimately, as individuals, our capacity to express ourselves is critical. But this comes back to an individual aspect of understanding ourselves. We've all heard it before. And it's quite ironic that we've charted the lands, we've dived the seas, and we've mapped all these things out, and supposedly done the same with the solar system. But yet we still don't understand what we are. And to me, in its own presence, that's a real irony.
Yeah,
that's a real
it seems
challenge.
like we've got life figured out, but we haven't got ourselves figured out, right?
Well, absolutely. And yeah, and if you don't understand yourself, you have very little chance of ever finding independence, which is what many of us are seeking at the moment.
Yeah.
And what I believe is most important is that not telling people what they are, not telling them what religions are all about or life or existence is all about. But the real truth in this, in my intention and movement of life, is about equipping people so that they never need to come across me or anyone else in life at all. They never need a healer. They never need a mentor. They never need a counselor. They never need any of these particular things, but to give to people what has been so lost over the last 100 years in the dissolving of generational wisdom. You know, once upon a time, a father and a mother who were the most loving of the children they were raising, they would have to reflect on their own life, on the things that were most important, that were most valiant, that were most enriching. Then what they had to do is they had to understand and consider them because they were going to pass them on to their children. So they had to first recognize their own worth and value, which becomes very fulfilling. Something that they believe was worthy to pass on to their children, that we can then pass on to their children. But just consider those types of conversations if they were had on a regular and daily basis, and maybe why they don't happen these days. Coming to understand how to navigate your life, the how to, not the fixing, not the pill, but how to move forward. Because I'll say this one last part, and a little bit to answer your question at the beginning, is why we wait until crisis before we do something about moving forward. Sadly, many of us have learned love or received attention when we've been most in trouble, most mischievous. And I'm sure, you know, it's something that always brings a smile to my face, is the word mischief. And I love the idea, the concept of it, and breaking and pushing the rules. I think it's a great quality of anyone in life. It's we've got to be able to laugh at ourselves and not take life too seriously. But most of us have learnt our attention and the attention we receive through pain, through problem. And for many of us, when we start to grow, and you hear in Australia, the tall poppy syndrome, when we start to grow, when we start to expand, when we start to do things that might be very successful in our own life, sometimes there's a tendency from the people around us to feel a little bit put out, to not celebrate that, to maybe by comparison feel that they're not measuring up anymore. Yeah. And this isn't like by intention, this is by habit. This is what's happening in society. And mostly for a lot of the time is that we've never practiced and never developed the capacity, especially in society, to be able to speak openly and freely and eloquently about others, to be able to uplift and inspire people. But for many of us, we've learnt that we gain the most attention, and even, through forms of abuse, that people continue to keep going back into these abusive situations because it's where they receive attention. It's where they learnt to receive attention. For some of us, in the inability as parents at times to be able to show vulnerability and love and take responsibility and show that to our children, rather than need to keep catching them doing things wrong. We've learnt these types of scenarios. So it's like when you were saying before about being overweight in your earlier years, Jace, is that for many of us, what we're seeking is our own attention. But sadly, for most of us, it's that when we lose, or when we're broken, or when something falls apart, that we then engage most with our life because we've been there before. We know what to do. We know how to push through it. No one is scared of that. Losing a love, nothing in our bank account, being depressed, whatever it may be, is that we find in our greatest pain is that we become most equipped, and most of our energy goes into life because we know what to do. Let's get in and clean up the mess. But the problem is most of us stop at a particular point where we start to get to a level of success that we've never experienced. Because with this particular topic about fear, what people are most scared about is the space beyond where they've been.
Just explain that for people, because I think it's just worth having a minute or two on what you say, what you mean. I mean, I clearly understand it, but what do you mean by the space beyond where we are now?
Well, I mean, a lot of us, have great ideas and great intentions, and we love talking about them, and we'll get very excited and enthused by them. But when it comes down to the actual doing of it, the actual execution of it, many of us find, maybe by our own design, that other things have now suddenly become more important. We find some of us even contract sickness. Emergencies pop up in our life, and we avoid that capacity to step into the unknown. Look, fear itself is just an extreme amount of attention and presence in this particular moment for what is happening in front of you. Now, if I've never been to a place before, if I've never considered a way forward or a new project or how to approach a partner, someone that I love, I'll become extremely present, and like all of me will be there in that moment. I'll be so sensitive to everything that's going on. But fear comes when it becomes so obvious what's standing in front of me, but I don't know how to move forward, and I'm choosing not to. The thing is, when we just take a step forward, and I don't know anyone that I've ever met in life, and I've dealt with thousands of people in this space specifically. I don't know anyone that in a place where they go, I don't know what to do, that just takes a step forward, not knowing where it's going to take them, that doesn't start to gain momentum and improve their life. There doesn't need to be a deep wisdom behind it. There needs to be movement. There needs to be the awareness of, if I keep moving, eventually I'll find my path. But we're not scared of, I say this a lot, we're not scared of failing. We're not scared of things falling apart, because we do that all the time. We're good at it. We've got evidence of it. We've been doing it for many years in our life.
Yeah.
What we're scared of is absolute success, absolute significance. I mean, people like yourself that are stepping out into this space is extremely admirable and inspiring for others. But the real key is, and what I'm really wanting to bring forward, and where we're really promoting this individuality and independence in life, is many people are not lawyers. Many people are not doctors. Many people are not photographers, speakers, whatever it may be that seems to be valuable at this time. We all have our own purpose, and when we as individuals stop trying to fight against the world, but when we start to identify what fulfills us, things start to change very rapidly. When we stop trying to interrupt those people that are brilliant at law and be able to serve and support them and provide for them. When we have other people in other areas that we can serve and support, but more so when we find a happiness in our own life to step into places that we've never been. And that's what this opportunity is at the moment for me, is learning the how to, learning how to navigate and have the courage to step into places that we have never been before, because that is what true fear is all about. That is what we're...
Can I give you an example there, mate?
Yeah.
And I think this would be, so I worked for Aussie Post for Star Trek for 29 years, and last year was the sales director. And when Ahmed, who was then CEO when I was there, or Christine Holgate was there for the last year, but whenever Ahmed would have his executive team together, you get 250 of us in a forum, and he would speak. We were actually prompted to ask questions of him from people organising the event, because people, I'll be honest, a lot of people were too frightened to put their hand up and ask a question. I'm talking, 45-year-old, 35-year-old males, females who are absolutely brilliant in their own right. Yet you put them in that environment and suddenly they feel almost like they're just not worth it. They're not at that level. And it held a lot of people back. And I noticed that when I was a sales director in the last few years there, just so many people looked at the hierarchy as the way forward. And no, you're the way forward. You seriously are the way forward. Not these people up here. They're good at what they're doing. You're great at what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, but it's an ironic thing that, we've often got people to go and speak to people around them and get them to ask them how they see them, what they think of them, the impact that they have on their life, because it's very rare that we as individuals actually have that type of conversation. And we've spoken and brought this up before, how often we speak about problems and how often we relate to other people with problems, and look at what's going on in the world at the moment. But it's not too popular, that conversation of what's brilliant, what's amazing, what's brilliant about me. I mean, it's not the conversation that most people allow themselves to have. They don't sit there and talk, courageously and openly about, well, I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
And therefore, by default, people don't focus on it. They become in service to others.
Yeah.
And they exist somewhere between pain and relief in life. And, it's when we start to see those particular things that we're doing each day, then we start to add up the equation and go, oh, fuck, no wonder why I feel like this. You stop beating yourself up about it. You stop thinking there's something wrong. It's you start putting weed killer, in the garden mix to water the plants, and you don't realize you're doing it. You're wondering why the plants are dying. And eventually you work out, oh, that's what I've been doing. I thought it was fertilizer. Well, then now it makes sense of those things. You don't start screaming at the plants or anything else. You're now aware of it. You can now make a change. The thing is, within our own self, there's so many models and so many examples that are ill-fated, that we focus so much upon pain, that we wear pain as a badge. I mean, think of people after having a big night out. They talk about how drunk they got and how hungover they feel, as if it's a great thing. Why do they talk about how amazing they feel and the great things that happen? It's a different scenario that we find ourselves in. And look, I don't mean this except to bring attention to anyone that really is looking for liberation, is to realize as an individual, if that's what I am doing to myself, as an individual, if I'm not cultivating some level of looking at my own brilliance and understanding how it is that I as an individual can grow and expand, well, there's a good chance I'm not going to grow and expand.
Yeah.
There's this new age hijacking of life at the moment about the universe is going to provide for me. These types of lies and deceits, this ungrounded psychology that's around there that denies the very capacity of individuals to keep people not independent. I have no time for it. And I think that the greatest crimes that have been played out in humanity exist in those particular places, these pillars of society that we've learned to trust in or elevate. When we go back to the truth, it's so very simple what we are and what we require moving forward. But the challenge is now delaminating and moving ourselves away from, just the phone or just what's happened, in the latest thing. What's the government saying? What's happening here? And look, to me, that's why it's I look, to me, I look at it sometimes in this way, that if you look at the significant organization, and I'm in awe of like what's been placed upon humanity and how organized all of this is. And some people say it's sinister, disgusting, and dastardly, and whatever other words. There's probably a bit more colourful language that goes with it. But the thing is, what that exposes to me is how powerful you are. Why would such a plan, why would such a degree of organisation be put across people that are useless and hopeless and that are sad and incapable? It's not the case. We're the only ones that think that of ourselves. But yet there's this monolith of extreme organisation that is steeped in wisdom for a purpose and agenda that's not mine. They've just got a different idea of what they believe is right in life. I got no interest in fighting. I got no interest in coming up against them and fueling their fire. It's exactly what is required. It's exactly what they're seeking. The whole point of this particular moment is for all of us to get engaged in our own lives to such a degree that we don't even notice what's going on. In the same way that, if you're fortunate enough, for me anyway, to have a child, and those moments where you get lost and you've been playing with them for, an hour and a half, and you suddenly look up and you see what time it is and you realize, shit, I've got to come back to life. I've got to get somewhere. I've got to do this. But in that moment where you own your own space, where you're so engaged in your life that it doesn't matter what's going on out there, and it's irrelevant what's going on out there. And I know that's hard for people to see, but I'm not speaking about this in a place of hope or wishing. I'm sick of the amount of information over the years that gets delivered to people, and well-intentioned coaches and deliverers of liberty to people that don't have any substance to it. And to me, that's me exposing a part of me. I think that's part of the horror that's there. But the thing is, people still keep buying into it. But I believe they keep buying into it because they're not really wanting the liberty and the change. Yeah. And that's something that we all have to, accept in our own self. If we've got to this particular point in our own life, it hasn't been by random events. There's still a part of me that, and what I would say and what I've learned over the years is the biggest fear, the main fear that everyone has is their own significance. The fact that they may be as significant and special as they are. That's
just on that, if I may, when I was on the Gold Coast and I went down there and did some live recording of the border rallies, just off camera, I spoke to so many people that day. But a question I asked them, and when you talk about what is beyond here, because I fully understand that and embrace it, but I spoke to a lot of nurses because, it was white shirt sort of stuff. And I said, so what is beyond this for you, the rally? And I was actually, my heart sung a fair bit because a lot of them, probably would say 73 out of 4 of them, 75% and 3 out of 4, they had a plan for what was beyond the rally. They weren't there just to protest. They were there because they were going, you know what this has done, it's woken me up. Whatever it is, it's triggered something in me that I needed to face into. And now what I'm going to do, and a lot of them were talking about doing things. You and I were at the Noosa Mark and we saw those 2 academics, and now they've gone from being into tea makers like they never dreamed they were going to go down that path, and all of a sudden, bang. So there is this thing about you don't being held in bondage to the fear. And I'd say there's so much controlled opposition out there with the fear, with the FEMA camps coming through, and I don't know where that stuff gets planted, but you can spend all your life worrying about getting locked down, getting held down by the army and jabbed, or you can just as you rightly say, just create stuff every day and don't give it any attention, don't put fuel to it.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. It's but look, that's not easy because we're so conditioned to doing it. And
right.
Look, one of the greatest seductions in life that I've learned is familiarity. And for many of us, we'll go back to those things that don't fulfill us, that don't serve us, that actually cause us pain, rather than be alone, rather than go somewhere that's unfamiliar. And it's ironic that the very remedy for most of us is, when we want to go on a holiday, we want space. But the thing that we fear also is our own space. As kids, we were teased for having no friends at times. But, to me, that's something I wear as a badge of honor, not having no friends, but being able to sit in my own space and enjoy it and love it and revere it. It's not by default, the mixing of our language and the bastardization of it. But, alone and the real sense of the word all one, to be all one with myself. When you actually, when we take it out of the fluffier sides of life, but to truly love and embrace ourselves, to actually, to me, that starts with something that's really significant, which most people probably don't consider. It starts with something being said, I don't know. Because everything that we know, look, if you start sharing something that you're brilliant at with someone and they go, yeah, no, I know all about that. Not only does that create a bit of a gap between you and them, but, you're sharing something, but you might go, no, look, I know, and you might try it one more time. But someone who knows everything doesn't have the space or the capacity to receive anything else. And the very notions of love, and I'm sure that if you actually find yourself standing in front of someone, and it's one of the most difficult things for people to say, but we've done this with so many people, where you actually get yourself to just observe what happens when you say to someone, I don't know. Watch how nearly impossible it is for people to not want to step forward and embrace you. I don't mean hug you and kiss you, but do they then want to engage you more because of the space you open up? And in the real truth of life, we know nothing. It's the fact that we think we know everything that's created all this disaster in the first place, because people don't want to accept or have the vulnerability, like you said, to even ask a question. Because to put your hand up in those spaces and ask a question is not for any other problem, because someone has been taught so much as an adult to never admit that they don't know something. I mean, I know as a parent how many times I have a crack at saying something just to, if my kids ask me a question. Now, most of the times I'll say I don't know, but there's definitely times where I'll have a crack at an answer just to appear like my son's going to look up to me and say, my dad knows. But in the real reality of that is the irony of how everything that we've been taught is the opposite of the truth. But we can't keep blaming people for it. We've got to at some point take the reins of that and go, you know what? I was asleep. And I don't mean asleep in this whole thing of wake up. I mean, we were comfortable. We were fattened on the land. We were given the good grain. And, there's no need to get up and move around.
Yeah, a bit like with those metaphors, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, just conscious of time, I just want to have a but when I think of fear, I can't help but think of my father. My dad's Italian. My surname is not it is by Deepole, but he still lives in the northeast of Italy. And I remember when we reunited after 35 years apart. My siblings and I have all been over there, and we've been back many times to see him. He's getting on now, but he tells his story during World War II when he was 9. I think it was 1943. I want to say 3, maybe. But they lived on a 3-level concrete block, very small. His room was 1.2 by 2 meters, right? So that was pretty small. That was his room. But they had 22 Italian militia men living on the top floor who were fighting the Mussolini, because the Mussolini had sided with Hitler. And Dad was in awe of these guys because they'd get up every day, and they were there for months. And I remember him telling me this story so clearly. And he said to one of the militiamen, he said, "Aren't you scared?" And the militiaman looked at him, and I don't know what his name was. We'll call him Paolo. Looked down and said, "If I stay in fear, I don't move forward." 22 guys taking on, the Germans and the Italian, obviously the Mussolini before he was flipped and hung. But just incredibly powerful stuff,
Simple.
Oh, it can be. I mean, and these guys are, facing something a little bit more, I guess it's all relative. So, Jace, can I ask next steps? What could people possibly do here? I mean, a lot of good content in what you say, and I personally can advocate for it.
Mate, look, I know we spoke last week quickly and sort of in an impromptu way, and we did put something together that's that people can access. It's something that look, we've got so many different projects that we're working on and that we're working through. And one of the things for me with this was, look, I've just been confronted with, and I wasn't heading back to Melbourne, but it's interesting, coming from a very tight Maltese Italian family, with about 45 of us that get together every second year. One of my cousins has now come forward and said that he won't be attending if anyone there is unvaccinated. The irony was that there was a number of people that were unvaccinated that were thinking that they weren't going to go. But that they moved through that they found that space in themselves. But there's going to be a lot of division that could come up at Christmas. And one of the things that, to me, that's a real opportunity and launch for people to really integrate and move forward in a powerful way. So, yeah, look, we've done a lot of things over the years, and I suppose one of the things we stand for is we only share things that work. I refuse to share things with people that don't work all the time, and I don't mean to get temporary outcomes. But for me to stand in a particular space in front of people and speak openly and directly, I don't do so with, I suppose, false promises. So yes, we've put something together. It's something that, I've looked at it in this particular way. I put something together that people can use and access, and it's something that I would say is only available to people in this community. And I don't mind people in this community inviting their friends to it, but I don't want this to be considered, an opportunity that's always available. And the reason being is it's a commercial reality is far less. It's nothing that we're going to make any money on, but it's something that I feel compelled to share with people. And it'll take our time, our energy, and we're going to have other people that work with us to support people in that space, because it's not just about sharing information and good luck. I don't believe in doing things that way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we've put something together. It's at a fraction of what it would usually be to do it with us. But look, to me, I'll be really honest. I've never given away things for free. I don't believe in it, because I know the disservice that it does for people that receive it. But the thing is, in saying that, this is one of those times where we've put something forward where if people don't want to pay for it and they can't afford it, and whatever situation they've got going on in their life, I don't need to know or understand that. This is something that's free and available to them. There is also a suggested contribution of about $199. But that $199 is not going to me or my organisation. My intention with that, if it was okay with you, Jace, was that half of that would go to you and supporting your campaign, because I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if, I suppose you wouldn't be sitting here doing this if we had never met. But the thing is, I love what you do, and I won't go into ingratiating it now, because to me it's I'm proud and I love what you do. And look, so my intention, those people who do want to contribute, who do want to put an investment towards that, half of that's going to go towards your campaign, whatever that means, wherever that leads to, whatever that ends up being. We're going to deliver something over a 4-week period leading up from here to Christmas that'll be specifically for your community. There's a link that you can put up there and people can have a bit more of a read about it. But look, we haven't put a lot of deep effort into that link and the page and explaining what it's all about. We're trying to make this as efficient as possible and deliver some really definitive content to people that is not just, I don't believe anything needs to be fixed. I don't believe anything's broken. I think when we get caught up in that circus and that cycle of trying to fix things, you're in a cycle you're never going to come out of. What I've seen in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, when people understand how to actually move forward through their life, things happen very rapidly and very quickly. So we're going to share some of the stuff, as I said, that usually is there for high-paying clients that we want to just make available in this particular part. And who knows, it might be something that we end up doing more as, depends what happens with society moving forward.
All right. So I kind of get a little bit triggered because we spoke about not bringing this in. I'm incredibly grateful for what you're doing, mate. And that's because you've caught me off guard there, I must say. That's stumped me, blown me away a bit. You know what I'm like when it comes to, well, you know exactly what I'm like. You know me better than
you like to give to everyone else, but that's all right, mate. That's look, it's part of it. Look, it'll all be made by the decisions that people make. It when there's no gun to anyone's head, there's no injection to anyone's arm in this particular space. This is all about. Look, if anyone's sort of stepped down that line and has regretted that, a lot of what we teach will reverse any of that stuff. And I don't say that lightly as well. I'm trying to say to you, what we're going to be delivering is real information that will. What I believe, there's no point in sharing information with people that is not compelling enough that they're not going to want to remember and still share with their children And that's a measure that I have. If what we're sharing is not that impactful and effective, why bother sharing it? Ultimately, you're only interrupting people's lives and giving them a level of false hope. So,
well, thank you, mate. Thank you. I wasn't, yeah, you've clearly stumped me. I wasn't expecting that. It is with much gratitude. I know that, obviously I've worked with you for some time. And I know that even at the basic concepts, people will take a lot of that. The fact that you can just offer something for free, or people can opt in, speaks volumes about how you're facing into this. And really the fact that what I've shared with you, I haven't obviously shared people's names. I would never do that. But the stories that I've told you about people, and even within my own family, people who are one step away from taking their own life, I'm quite emotional, but from the heart, thank you, mate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right,
I'll receive it.
I'm honored to do so. Look, if it doesn't come across, I love what I do. So it's especially in these particular places, it's taken a long time to get here, but to me, it's a lot about giving back. And I mean, to me, what I look for humanity in the longer term is these are the greatest opportunities to grow in, and this type of thing that some of us are scraping just to feel a bit better about ourselves really shows how much further we've got to go. And to me, what an open field of opportunity that there is when we start to become contagious with enthusiasm and brilliance that people start to discover. I mean, I know I can chat, but I just wanted to say one thing, that there's groups on the Sunshine Coast at the moment, and I suppose all across the country, but we're really getting behind, communities setting up buying groups, food co-ops, not just in some temporary measure, but in a highly organised way, in a way that is going to, we talk about turning our back on the current system that's there. I mean, there's so many ways to do that, but how fulfilling it is. When I went and saw a couple of groups of people that have been doing it now for about 3 years, 4 years, and the way in which, I said, well, how do you deal with this? Does anyone no one gets paid. Everyone comes in, one person does a spreadsheet, one person does this, one person pays the invoices. There's 20 families. And they all just get in and do it. There's obviously people, that always goes wrong and this happens. But the fulfillment that they have and the quality of the produce that they have and the fact that they know they've done it themselves and the fabric that creates through their life. And one of the things they said to me was, you know what, these particular people have become my family. I get together with them once a week. I come away with amazing food. I come away with a few laughs. I get to see people, but that connection that I get with people, the tribal feel and a community and belonging is so significant, which has been lost because we're racing from one wing to the next. But
well, it's the true meaning of a cooperative when you are actually in that environment. And I'm glad you said that, because I've mentioned that a couple of times, not specifically the one you're involved in, but I'm now seeing the same thing with nurses that are no longer employed through choice. They're creating their own little groups and education. I don't know if I actually posted the video I did, but the less we focus on them, the more we focus on what we're doing, the less significant they become. And that's exactly how I've been blessed to do a lot of work with you. And I guess that's how I live my work and my life every day. I get sent a lot of information. And if I reacted to all of it, I probably would never, ever leave this study where I am today, this bedroom. But I don't. Yeah. And I just don't allow it to be bondage. And to hear some of the stories out of Dad would tell me, he lived in Germany for a while, but just even the people in Auschwitz, when you hear about them living there, they, like a lot of these people, live without fear in those concentration camps. And that's a special kind of something, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's I think some of the times that we that saying is that it could be worse, and isn't that an interesting thing, that we allow ourselves to suffer because we think it could be worse. But this is the nature of where humanity, I suppose, has got to in the significance of what we are, the energy that's gone into trying to control what we are, the lack of attention that's been provided on some of the most basic things and simple understandings in our own life, that we exist to express ourselves, Our fulfillment is very much determined by how much we understand our own expression. You know, movement, adventure, space in our own life are critical aspects. And once we can understand those things, and then more importantly, how to actually cultivate them in our own life, we can stop thinking. We can turn the tally off and the fuzz in the background because we're stopping trying to work out what all this stuff is that's going on. And suddenly we find peace.
Yeah,
and it's it's the letting go, not the accumulating.
I love it. And I really do want to say thank you, mate. Thank you, because I really just kind of threw you in, something I wish I'd done a while ago, but I feel for the people. I mean that. Maybe it's an empath journey. I'm not sure. I got a heavy heart just talking right now, to be honest, if I had to be absolutely honest, but a lot of that's gratitude as well, mate, for what you're doing. And hopefully we're seeing a lot, not hope. I want to talk about hope one day, because I don't even want to use that word in the broader sense. I get it, but not in the short term. Okay, so I need to talk to you about where I can find this stuff, and I can link it, obviously.
We've had some pretty clever people just put a link together. It's I'm happy for people to be critical with it, with graphical and layout and formatting and all the rest of it. But it's been put together by some very handy people working for us in a short space of time, but to deliver an outcome, not to deliver a presentation. So there's a bit of information there. I can send you through a link. I can send it through to you now. I don't know what you want to do with it, but
I'll put it on my Senate page under this when the first time I've actually gone live, I think from Zoom to Facebook. So a bit of learning. But if I put the link there, people can.
Yeah, they can go and click on it. There's this information there. I think there's even an email that goes with it. One of the things I did want to say, and look, it's probably been me dragging my own feet a bit from last week, and probably could have done this a little bit earlier, but earlier this week. But the thing is, it's about 4 weeks till Christmas, and we're intending on maybe starting doing this next week, probably starting from next Thursday. Okay. Because otherwise, I don't mind doing it a little bit later, or stopping just before Christmas and then getting everyone set up for that particular space and enjoyment at that particular point, and then reconvening with everyone in the 4th week, beyond that. But I'm just conscious of I do want to be able to deliver a level of content, or we deliver a level of content to people that they can actually benefit from and actually start to see a significant change and difference in their own life. So
I think the timing's perfect, buddy. Actually, 17th of November, I hadn't even considered Christmas, but no, I don't think
it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. So no, stick to whatever works for you. Obviously, you're doing a lot of this stuff, pro bono. So that I think everyone would appreciate as well. So the fact that you had people create this thing in a matter of a couple of days, you're not billing me for it. So thank you for that.
Oh, maybe half a day, but we'll see. But yeah, it's not going to win any design awards, but hopefully it gets a message across.
All right. Well, I'll pop it up, and much gratitude again, mate. I really do appreciate you, and love everything you do, my friend. And thank you for joining me on this page. And I do hope that there's people out there that see the value in just the conversation, the words you've had, and explore this further. And I guess, what's the worst thing they can do? If they can't afford it, they can sign up for free. So, I mean, that's just incredible generosity in itself, mate.
Look, if there's any, I'll just say this, Jason, if there's any, whether people decide to do this or not, I'm also aware that we've opened up a bit of a door in this conversation as well. And for some people, for whatever they end up doing, but if there's questions that they have, feel free to put them. I don't know where we're going to on your page or whatever it may be, but if they've got questions,
look at that. Yeah.
But by all means, feel free to ask and clarify. We'll either let us know, or don't want to leave things incomplete.
Okay, yeah, of course, that would be not you. All right, mate. Much love, and take it easy. And I guess we'll stay connected as we do.
All right, beauty. Thanks very much, Jason.
See you, buddy. Thank you.